The average NFL football game runs 3 hours and 12 minutes. The amount of time the ball is actually in play, 11 minutes. The rest is commercials, about 100 of them, replays, and guys standing around. You sat through that math for decades, and at some point, probably on a Sunday afternoon sometime in your late 50s, you looked at the screen and thought, why am I still doing this? Or maybe you never did it at all. Maybe you spent 35 years in break rooms and job sites listening to other men talk about the game, and you nodded, and you smiled, and you stayed quiet. Either way, you're here now, retired. And the question that followed you your whole working life is still sitting there. My name's Frank. I pull apart data, threads, studies, brain scans, conversations that thousands of people are having right now where they say the things they'd never say at a barbecue. I've gone through over 500 of them on this one topic. Not why do people love sports? That question's been answered 100 times. Your question, why don't you care? And what does that say about the way your brain actually works? The answer starts with chemistry, and it ends somewhere you won't expect. When a sports fan watches their team drive down the field, their brain releases dopamine. That's the same chemical that fires when you win a hand of cards or bite into something you've been craving all day. Every play sends a little spark. Every near miss, every last-second shot, every time the ref makes a bad call. Micro hits of reward, over and over, for 3 straight hours. The reason it hooks people so hard is because you never know what happens next. That uncertainty is the engine. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement, the same reward pattern that keeps a person sitting at a slot machine even when they know the odds are bad. You can't predict the next play, so the brain stays locked in, chasing that next little spark. But your brain doesn't do that. And here's the part that would have saved you 40 years of wondering what was wrong with you. It might not be a choice. A study published in PubMed looked at dopamine receptor genes, specifically DRD2, DRD4, and DRD5, and found that differences in these genes directly affect how much a person responds to watching competitive activities. Your total lack of interest in who wins the World Series might be wired into your DNA. You didn't choose to not care. Your chemistry chose for you. Now, that explains why the game itself doesn't grab you. But that was never the whole story, was it? Because the game was never really about the game. It was about the room you were watching it in. And that room ran on a different kind of chemistry altogether, one that goes back a lot further than football. You grew up in a world with 3 television channels, maybe 4 if the antenna cooperated. Monday Night Football launched in 1970, and it wasn't just a game. It was a national event. Howard Cosell, Don Meredith, Frank Gifford. Your father watched it. Your uncles watched it. The guys at school talked about it Tuesday morning. There was no internet, no streaming, no 400 channels. Sports was one of the only shared experiences available to men in this country. And if you didn't care about it, you were on the outside of something that felt as big as the weather. Back in 1976, a psychologist named Robert Cialdini studied college students after football games and spotted a pattern. After a win, they'd say, "We won." After a loss, they lost. Same team, same students, but the pronoun flipped depending on the score. He called it berging, basking in reflected glory. The team wins, and your brain registers it like you won. Your chest puffs out. You wear the jersey Monday morning. And when they lose, you cut the cord. They blew it. Not me. You never did that. You never said we about a team you weren't on. And the reason you didn't isn't because you're cold or broken or missing something. A 2022 study published in F1000 Research found that people with low interest in sports score lower on what psychologists call tribal instinct, the drive to form an in-group and define yourself by it. That tribal pull is what makes a man paint his face in team colors and scream in a parking lot at 8 a.m. You just don't have that pull. Not for sports. Not for most group identity things. And family therapist Michael Unger, writing in Psychology Today, points out that this isn't just about Sundays. People with lower tribal instinct are less likely to fall into us versus them thinking in every part of their lives. Politics, work disagreements, neighborhood drama. You're not just skipping the game. You're wired to skip the whole war. Now, you just spent 35 or 40 years in workplaces where sports talk was the password, the universal small talk, the safe thing men said to each other instead of anything real. So if you weren't in that club, What did you do? And more importantly, now that you're retired and that pressure is gone, what does it actually mean to be you without having to fake it? In 2021, a man posted on Reddit's r/casual conversation with the title, "Men Who Don't Care About Sports at All. How has that affected your career?" He described himself like this: "I'm a dude, a man's man, love cars, wrenching on things, love building and renovating houses, love getting my hands dirty, fishing, hunting, you name it." Then he said this: "Every person I need to network with has almost zero hobbies except sports. I feel I'm not part of the club, and I don't understand how every single man I know at work has no idea how to fix anything but will spend all of their energy on some sports team." That man spent his entire career feeling like the odd one out, not because he lacked interests, but because his interests involved doing things with his hands instead of watching other people do things on a screen. And that split between doing and watching shows up everywhere in the research. Researchers call it parasocial investment versus direct engagement. Parasocial means you care deeply about people who don't know you exist. You yell at the TV and they can't hear you. You wear their name on your back and they've never seen your face. Direct engagement is the opposite. You put your energy into things where you're a participant, where your hands change the outcome. On that same r/AskMen thread from August 2025, user after user said the same thing, almost word for word. "I'd rather play than watch. Why would I sit for 3 hours watching strangers?" And one user, Angels and Airwaves 93, nailed it. "I realized what I always loved the most was the community aspect of sports, belonging collectively to something. So much of my male connections are tied to sports. Still, I don't care much for it anymore." He didn't lose interest in people. He lost interest in sitting still. A 2021 study found that people with low sports interest scored higher on something called openness to experience. They get their charge from making things, learning things, being out in the world. Their brains are chasing the same reward as any sports fan, meaning connection, a reason to get up in the morning. They're just finding it with a hammer instead of a jersey. Now, you spent your whole working life thinking this made you the outsider, the quiet guy, the one who didn't have anything to say on Monday morning. But what if the thing you thought was a disadvantage was actually telling you something about the way your brain processes the world? Something the brain scans just confirmed last year. In November 2025, researchers presented a study to the Radiological Society of North America. They put soccer fans, real, dedicated, face-painting fans, into an fMRI scanner and played them match footage. The reward centers in their brains went off. The motor planning regions fired, the same parts of the brain that activate when you're about to physically move. Their brains were simulating playing the game. Watching was doing for them. Then they put in casual viewers and people who didn't care about the sport at all. Same footage, same scanner. And those brain regions? Quiet, flat, not broken, just not interested. The signal didn't land because the receiver wasn't tuned to that frequency. And here's what that means for you specifically. You grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, an era where there was no language for this. Nobody said your dopamine receptors don't respond to spectator competition. Nobody said you have low tribal instinct. They said, "What's wrong with you?" Or "You're no fun." Or they just stopped inviting you. You carried that for decades, through every Super Bowl party you didn't want to attend, through every fantasy league you pretended to care about, through every breakroom conversation where you stood there with your coffee and your silence. And now, you're retired. The breakroom is gone. The pressure to perform is gone. Nobody's asking you about the game anymore. And for the first time, the thing you thought made you strange is actually the thing that makes the most sense about you. There's a Reddit user, BassJam1, who wrote something in August 2025 that stopped me cold. He said, "Why would I want to waste my time watching other random people play a game? It's not like they're even from my city. They just temporarily wear a jersey with my city's name on it until they're traded." That's just clarity, not bitterness. That's a man who figured out, maybe after years, maybe after decades, that he was never going to feel what the guy next to him felt watching a game. And instead of pretending one more time, he just said it. You spent your whole career being the man who didn't have the right thing to say on Monday morning. Now, you're retired. And the funniest part? Your brain was never missing anything. It was just already out in the garage, building something real, while everybody else watched strangers play with a ball. If you found any value in this video, hit the like and subscribe button below. This helps YouTube show it to more people like you. If you have anything you'd like to share, go ahead and drop a comment. I reply to every single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.